나는데 주에는 조직이 달로마 안되네 요래서나 안되네 안주 담가야 안에 직 자주 람르에서 담가 되라 안에 돼 Geshe Thubten and the Chicken also saw by you the Chiche, and then Yamsolaya and Dumdevo and Chicken. A person the same do we get up to watch in the Sombaza, Yamsolaya Lantevo. Then the Shung Shanle, Luke Shanle, and the Chava the Papa, the Dennis said on this ground to she saw it.
Good morning. Good afternoon. This morning, we concluded looking at Lama Atisha's biography, and in particular on the section on his students, both in India as well as in Tibet, or Tibet and the non-Tibetan regions. And then thereafter, we're coming to the new chapter. We looked at how the spiritual instructions that are contained within the Lamp on the Path to Enlightenment, they have three qualities, there are three qualities, that all the subjects of the Buddha Dharma are contained within the text, that through training in training one's mind in the sequence of trainings that are presented there, one will easily be able to transform one's mind. And then thirdly, compared to other texts, there is incomparable benefit for sentient beings.
아니네 자랑도 안도 세도 쇼베티 고 쉬시다는 안도 다되네 다데 담가 될라 체와시 요래서 담가 세데데 자주 람렌 될이야 아니 키슈 시디 마슈슈고래 네 슝들라 슝디 담가라 체와시 유데 시레 세시.
Immediately turning to the text on the ebook version, page 12, and in the printed text, page 13. The greatness of understanding all teachings as without contradiction. The first line, the greatness of the instructions of that text has four aspects.
난 제와 시대 가르스는 디레다 템바 탐제 가메도 도피게 차와서 지거래 템바 탐제 가메도 도피 차와 아니 송라 탐제 담가도 제외 채와서야다. 되네 기회 공부 아니 대라도 도백이 채와서야다. 아니 예죄 침보 랑각수 주베 채와서야 채와 시디 디레데 계셔 시디네 요래서야지도 송으로.
The four greatnesses are, the first one already mentioned, the greatness of understanding all teachings as without contradiction. And over the page, the greatness of seeing all the Buddha's teachings as instructions. Again over the page, the greatness of allowing you easily to discover the victor's intention. And fourthly, the greatness of naturally stopping serious misdeeds. So those then are the four greatnesses.
다 당보세리 템바템제 가면도 또 배차와 시대다 디시오레. 나다 당보스 템바템제 가면도 또 배차와 채와니 아니 개위 송바 진예바 탐제도.
The first of these is the greatness of understanding that all the teachings, everything the victor said, is without contradiction.
템바 탐제 가메도 또비 차와 세디 템바 세디 가레스로 템바 탐제 가메도 또 유디 템바디 지레 디 안에 가요 말에서 하고 해야 돼 똑바식으로 하고 해야 돼 제사다 템바 탐제 가메도 또에게 템바디 가레라네 제위 송비게 예위 송바 진예바 탐제도 상이 송비 최 탐제 때 템바세디 디레제 룽기 템바데다 당가 상이 송비 템바데로 또베 템바다 룽기 템바 이나네 룽기 템바 상이 송비게 송럽 간에 차상 안데 다 템바세 디레디나 디레서.
All the teachings refers to all the scriptural teachings of the Buddha, or the victor of the Buddha, that were taught, that these are without contradiction. Realizing that, or being able to realize that, is the first greatness.
나 상지 유송럽티 예위 유송비 송진예바 탐지 ane gawa yo mare sede janju lamdren le ya lobjong je yo du ane gara ha go resna sanyi yu sung be sung tamje ya nganju nyamne chewala gawa yo mare sede ha go tu gre so to be chewa ji to tu ye gi to tu gre janju lamdren nyamne cheba na lamdren de nyamne cheba de la de ne ane gara ha go resna nganju gi jewi sung ga ne shme na chasa ane gawa yo mare nyamne cheba gawa me ba de to tu gre ha go tu gre je.
The first of the four greatnesses is that understanding that when studying the Lampa on the path to enlightenment, one comes to understand that all the scriptural teachings from the Buddha are without contradiction. So one comes to recognize this while studying the text and training one's mind, that all the Victor's teachings, or the Buddha's teachings, are without contradiction.
ane 직계와 치말 하다 미고봐 토야게 답란된 비교 송랍 된 년되기 ane 년되기 릭전 남래 송비교 송랍 송 라제 릭전 남래 송비교 송 ane 차바친 비교 전주세 차바친 비 가사 ane 바로 지친 비교 람냠내 림바 송비 송 디나시아 상하더제 태비교 람냠내지 람냠내 림비교 송 되네가 송 멍보여로 받아 지산 계위 송라 탐지해야 돼 디수 차서 상마식으로 받아.
What we have here in the text, all the teachings, everything the Victor said. So here we can understand this in several ways. We can refer to the three different goals of the practitioner, that of a good rebirth, that of liberation, and that of enlightenment, or in terms of the trainings the individual practitioners engage in, of the three practitioners of the three lineages, hero, solitary realizer, and bodhisattva. Or one can take it to understand as the Sutra and Tantra teachings, that between these there are not contradictions.
Dene rangye yushune sonsha dike nganzu nyamne chewa yo mara nganzu kyakwa chimbe chwe re chida nyandwe da rangye yushune yushun son dike sonha dike kyakwa memba lo son bare dezo nganzu nyamne chewa mara chida di chewa mara asambe samno di chewa na gadaru sam tanto yungurwa di nashi o nganzu nga nyamne chewa re chida parodu chimbe dwe nyamne di nganzu chewa mara nga nyamne chewa dezo jangu mara de tawo mara asambe samno yungurwa dizo da chida 파로도 침비게 냠는 지엔지나 나게 냠는 제 맞춰봐다 나게 냠는 지게나 파로 침비 슝기들라 아직 냠는 제나 지금 해봐도 태바 침비 슈 냠는 지게나 년되다 란제를 손시비게 슝디게 손비데니 그 손비게 최디게 냠는 제 뭐와도지 드네 삼다만 가다 삼당 고래해 가다 삼당 고래해.
What is meant here by contradictory is if one, for example, is drawn towards the Mahayana teachings, one may well then think, oh, there's no need for me to train in those of the teachings of the hero and solitary realizer. Not even train, I don't even need to come to know what they are. I can just dismiss all those teachings which are included within the Tibetan basket. So this would be a mistaken way to think. So this is what is meant by contradictory. Or another area where one may make an error is if one is drawn towards the tantric teachings and thinking, oh, I have no need then for the perfection vehicle. I can just ignore that. That too would be, that too is an illustration of what is meant by contradictory.
Chisa dine zada 장주 람드ren pa nyamne tu cheyedu dine chasan de gansa chi ge sanggi yugoban thobala chasan nyamne je goba de ha고 그래 so chisa gaime zo ga yo mares bene sanga dorje tebe lam nyamne je ge jine digi 파로도 침be shune shebege 아니 뇌 감ne shebege nyamne ge badi nyamne je goba de je gogo re andi maje nyande다 rangye yushune sebe nyamne rimbadi nyamne che gobadi ha gansa jik sangya wala deso nyamne che gugu ore di che gobadi ane ha gugure jiza nga nyamne jige digi je done de sungbe nyamne da ane jige nyande da rangye ne sungbe shungi je nyamne dige je bana matik baso chi samnodi gawa de yomares dinige gawa meba mase manjugi ngaga nyamlen chigine 차사 손베게 냠는 지고 바디 하고 투그리 또 투그리 제 감에도 또 바디서 냠는 제바라 가어요 말 소소래 판도요 봐 산이고 번토벌 제수 인지미지 냠는 제 고구요 바디 또 투그리 해서 제사 감에도 또 배차와 디래서
Here perhaps to better than to use the word contradictory is to use the word mutually exclusive. The mistake that one is being encouraged to guard yourself against is to think, I'm drawn towards the Mahayana, I don't need to train in the Theravada teachings, seeing these two as mutually exclusive, as not being, one not needing to train in both, as almost being contradictory. Or feeling that one is drawn towards tantric teachings, and therefore seeing the sutra teachings as something one does not need to rely on as well, seeing these two as being mutually exclusive. This then is what one is the greatness of this text is to come to recognize that the varying ways of dividing the teachings are not mutually exclusive, but someone who does aspire to the bodhisattva paths also needs to know well the trainings of hearers and solitary realizers, because a bodhisattva needs to be able to benefit all beings, whatever their disposition. And likewise, someone who aspires to train in the tantric vehicle, they need the foundation of the sutra vehicle. So therefore, these are not mutually exclusive.
제나 마티바가 마티바로 삼다나 디고 말해서 가와 삼다나 디고 말해서 지난번에 우상은 좀 아냐면 진짜 너 따고 말해 지수의 럽지 정말서 나 아직 뭐냐면 진지게 세배 세나 딜람나 다다차게 디고 말해서 지난다 디네자 강사지 창제와라 차상냠는 지고고레스 지산 디네 장주 람른 때는 럽정 제도 오다 강사지 상지고 방 토발라 차상냠는 지고 고고요 바디 하고 그래서 지산 냠내지나 가와메바 랑래 판도요 바디 하고 두리에지도 예비 손라 탐제 감에도 또 배쳐와서도 가와메바 또 투얘기 체취도 요래서 월다 채와서도 장주 람른데 럽정 제도 예비 손라 탐제 강사지 상계발라 판도요 바 고고요 바 냠는 제고 바디 하고 그래서 되니기 하고 이게 고투얘기 체취도 요래서 월다
Through studying this text well, one will come to this text will serve the benefit of one coming to recognize that the teachings are not mutually, or the various divisions of the teachings are not mutually exclusive, and thereby one will be guarded from thinking, I'm a practitioner of Tantra, I don't need to engage in sutra trainings. Rather, one will come to understand that in order to attain enlightenment, this entire sequence of trainings, one needs to come to know well, train one's mind, and in this way will attain the final goal. So therefore, in this way, the text possesses this first greatness of understanding that all the teachings are without contradiction or are not mutually exclusive.
dir kansaji sanjiwe lamdo gowa de sen sesan dir se de chanshu lamren digi lobjong cheba ina ande so nyande da rangelm ande chike sanga dorje tebe lamne sheba da parji de shune shebe nyamle rimba chasa jiga so nyamlen je sanji bala desu chasa nyamlen je gobadi ha guguri esda sore kansaji sanjiwe lamdo 고와 때 간사지 창자와라 상지고방 토발라 뒤에서 냠는 지역고바디 람 냠는 지역고바다 하고 그래서 고와 때서다 하고 그래 또 그래서 그러다 고와 때서
The next line of the text, they all come to be understood as one person's path to Buddhahood. So therefore, these different divisions or different ways of dividing the Buddha Dharma, these all need to be known and realized in order to attain the supreme goal. Therefore, the trainings that are associated with the hearer and solitary, that are in common with the hearer and solitary realizer path, need to be engaged in also by those seeking the goal of a bodhisattva. Likewise, the trainings in Sutra and Tantra also all need to be known for those seeking enlightenment, known and realized by those seeking Buddhahood.
다네 가르 제고래 람다 냠네 가르 제고래 람나 대양 가지 람지 조 가지 람지 양라 아니 지릭 봐 주고 세대 다 가르 제고래 sem제하데 마송고 마
The paragraph concludes with, that is to say, some are primary points of the path, while others are secondary points. This then refers to the actual training that one would engage in, with some parts being primary and some secondary.
당한저 상지 고봉 투비 지도 람냠린 지게디 다 지게 파신 대반의 시비 장슈셈 바다 다 상하기 도시 대비슈네 냠린 지게디게다 상지 고봉 투비 지 람냠린 지게 차고로 봐 다디네 자당 지게 파신 대비 시비 슈네 시비기다 장슈셈 바지 상지 고봉 투비 지도 대바친 비게 람냠린 제바이나 아니 간에 시오레라도 카지네 람유 조 세디 다 장슈셈 잠니지게 장슈셈 조다 타바침에 람냠 제발로 조 장슈셈곰 장슈셈 심비토네 진바나 추진냠 세바다 안에 동바이도 베셔라 고미야데다 조르차 조 장슈셈 고고로 봐 제상 칼람 주네시 타바침에 주네시 베 장슈셈 잠니지다 장슈셈데게 람요 조 디심비토네 냠네 제와자 카진나 람요 조 세데 다 타바침에 람냠랭기 지도 조 가르치야서 장슈셈 곰 디군네나베 토네 셴냠네 제고반사 람요 조 세데 장슈셈나 장슈셈기 심비기 토네다 동바인다 지마 데서 시고로 람요 조오레 세데 야라 기시메 조 냠네 제데 장슈셈바는 조 가르냠 조 장슈셈 유군에 라베 토네 심베 토네다 파진 주게 냠네나 동바이도 베시라 냠네 시고로 와세데 조세데 야라디 기시오마 조어디네 시고레 조어디레세
Through studying the text, one will come to recognize that in order to become a Buddha for the sake of others, one needs to engage in the trainings of both Sutra and Tantra, and as an entry point into the trainings of a Bodhisattva, one needs to generate bodhicitta in one's continuum. And therefore, bodhicitta is a primary, do you have here the word primary? Is a primary training for someone who aspires for Buddhahood. Because bodhicitta needs to be conjoined with the other practices such as ethical restraint and so forth, up to the perfection of wisdom, the bodhicitta needs to be conjoined with that in order to become a cause for enlightenment, or rather, in order for enlightenment to be attained.
다 가진의 남기 양라 지릭바 규로고 세대다 람카시 기부 충윤급의 손셰비기 치와 미다바다 레균제다 데네게 삼다에게 당한저 태바 챔비기 취념는 제발라 전주선바 남기 념내저 조디 잠니제 전주심이 군내라데 진바다 추줌라서 바다 동반이도 베셔라 겁는 념는 조디르와 내 디소 념내 야고 용화라 니라 가르치고를 해서네 기부 충우다 투모웰 남기림바 치와 소소라나 치와 미다바다 안지게 가서래 겸조다 아니 레균들 20디 고고레스 제산 제소 야고 지기 양라 세도다 원조려야 당한적 타바침이 쉐념네 제발로 온돌에 되는 예래야 되는 삼당고래 디삼마다바이나 제 전주심의 야고 기투 레투고 말레스 잠니지 야고 기투 말레 대자다 야라 세디 디 온돌로 뭐지 조어디다 전주심이 군내라데 파진주기 냠네 제대로 조어디 디 냠네 야고 마지 예래 가르고고래서 야라라 그저 치와미다 기부 충모다 투모라 미림바 치와미다 바다 인점로다 안에 레균데 이치베게 어디바디게 고고래 제래 몬도 야라 직제 다 야라 지데네 안디야 안에 직 샘전 탐제 동화단 자고 샘베 자두기 닝제 깨와라 능아주 가로서 랑 샘전 탐주 랑 당보 콜베 동화를 저고 콜베 동화를 탈고도 샘베 탈두게 삼바 기부 징게 람니 림바디게 마주야 온돌이야 장고고레스 전주sem바 남기 조디 전주sem 심비토네 파치주 냠네 제바리 디 냠네 야고 용야라 녜려야 안기고 충호다 투모라 미림바다 기고 진다 투모라 미림바디게 녜려 장고고레스 제자 야라스야 디스고레
Looking from the perspective of someone who aspires to cultivate the path of a bodhisattva within them. As has just been mentioned, they know their primary training will be the cultivation of bodhicitta. The branch trainings that they will need to engage in as the foundation will be those trainings which are shared with the practitioner of initial capacity, such as recognizing the incredible opportunity that this life brings, but that it is impermanent, and as well as the other trainings that are shared with the practitioner of initial capacity. These are the indispensable foundation for a practitioner to actually cultivate the paths of a bodhisattva within them. Furthermore, in order to generate compassion, the wish, may all beings be freed from suffering, the aspirant bodhisattva needs to cultivate the foundational trainings, or the preliminary trainings, or the branch trainings, which are to reflect deeply on the sufferings of samsara, as well as their origin. It's only then, once the practitioner has given rise to their wish for themselves to be freed of suffering, can they then understand how others are suffering too. So therefore, the trainings that are shared with a practitioner of intermediate capacity are the indispensable preliminary to the generation of great compassion. And therefore, these are also branch practices for someone who aspires to become a bodhisattva.
Desoi pa jangwa yo mare samna digo mare chesan dizung ngonrol pa janggo gores ngonrol ma jaba na ane yabu jamni je da janju sem ki tu mare chesan ngonrol deso gibu chung lamni rimba tumo lamni riba da gibu ringi tumo lamni riba pa jang dene shine an jamni je da an janju sem ki ne an tawa chimbe nyamne je wo desa da janju sem ki simbi to ne pa jin ru nyamne je wa da janju sem ba na bi nyamne yu zo wo de che zo da nyamne wo su je zo wo de che 디 마게 냠는데 마게 녀야 장고데 야라 녀라데 기부 충원데 투모라 미르바나 기부 딩게 투모라 미르바데 데네레 제사 데네게 기부 숨게 람니림바디 차사 강사 지게 상게 칸 상기 고마토바 장주 셈바디 차사 냠는 랭고고레스 갑 가시 무소 냠는 무시지 조지 냠는지 가시 다 무시 녀레야 야라데 녀레야 냠는지 화데 두수스에서지라 조다 가지做的感觉呢，告诉了咱们原来几十个就我是那们结果都是在的，那那就送过了。
Therefore, if we feel ourselves drawn due to our karmic imprints towards the Mahayana, wanting to develop bodhicitta and practice the six perfections, if that draws us, we should use this intention then wisely and first cultivate the preliminaries. One needs to first cultivate the preliminaries before one can successfully engage in the primary practice. And again, the preliminaries to the cultivation of great compassion and then bodhicitta is first to train in to engage in the trainings that are shared with a practitioner of initial capacity, and with those as the foundation, engage in the trainings shared with a practitioner of intermediate capacity. That is indispensable in order to give rise to actual compassion and then bodhicitta. So therefore, guard yourself from focusing on what you are most inclined towards, perhaps bodhicitta, and rather cultivate at the preliminaries so that your training in bodhicitta will actually bear fruit.
코와레 저고도 코베 동아레 저 타바세 토부도 선배 삼로딩한테 장고야 마디 년도에다 라겔이 봐 손시베 중에 손시베 최랭한 좀 냠내 지고야 말씀에 다 지고 말해서 디스 물어봐다 제가 닌디기 냠내 지고야 되래 지고야 되래 룽기고네 주투고레 리베 삼다나 주고래 리바 김세 삼다나 리바 김세 삼다나 냠내 지고야 차고 그래서 안데 룽기야 안데 냠는 제고서 룽다 룽기에 수고레스 제사디 제고 말에 가서 택바 침표 냠는 제래 대산 기부 중요다 링다 대년퇴다 라요 슌네 시비기 지가 람데 가서 냠는 제고 말에 람나 디가와 가그르스는 슝다 가르레스 룽다 가그레스 룽기나로야 냠는 제고고레 수고레스 룽다 가그레스 소식에 제바 리바삼다만 리바나야 가와차그레스 제사는 냠는 제고고래 냠는 제고고 말을 남나 리바단 가그리 롱단 가와차그레스 보다
So someone who thinks the trainings that are shared with practitioners of initial and intermediate capacity, these I can put to one side because I'm striving to become a bodhisattva. This is an error. This is an error. And this is an error for two reasons. One, because in the scriptures it says very clearly that in order to generate bodhicitta, one needs to train in the trainings that are such as precious human rebirth, sufferings of the lower realms, sufferings of samsara in its entirety, and so forth. That foundation is required. Moreover, there are many reasons that such as is being presented here. So not just scriptural citations, but also reasons that you should utilize to establish that it would be mistaken to see the different divisions as mutually exclusive, and that some therefore can be set aside.
Duja yang richen sungpa jesu jing guebe dadage lamla lapgue yes.
Continuing in the text, in this regard, the Bodhisattva's wish is to work for the welfare of the world. To do this, it is necessary to prize all three types of disciples and therefore train in their respective paths. So here, reasons are being presented why the different divisions are not mutually exclusive.
Simjing Pantoje Dondal, Simjin Dunga se, Koyo Dunga, Sanje Cook, Duye Queg Dondala, Simjing Dondala, Simjing Digi Dubiata, Simjing Dunga se Dondala, Janju Simin Yamlin Dires, Di Dondala Yamlin Chigore, Ezere, Janju Sambanam Yeshiduni, cheating you Dunduba in Las.
We ask ourselves, what is the objective? What is the goal of a bodhisattva? What is the reason that they are engaging in everything they do? It is to benefit sentient beings. This we see in the first sentence. In this regard, the bodhisattva's wish is to work for the welfare of the world. The heart wish of a bodhisattva is to benefit each and every sentient being, no matter who they are. Each and every being is benefiting each and every being is the heart wish of a bodhisattva.
Just something doing Druya, something doing say and dig you to be a river. Just a $10 change some band again, Yam and Chicorella or a Dundrubaila. Then something in Dundrubana, some gentle like Harriers and Duja region sum your essay, Duja region sum, and the Jike Xenyandu region, Ranger region, and Jajusim region said Duja region sum your was. Just a Sunga, Jesu Zimbes, Jesu Zimguebes. Sunga la Pando Chego was, Simbian Tamjig Pandogena. Kashele Pandoja, Kajela Pando Majabajan, Digomar was. Chesa, Duja region, Sungala Pando, Duja de la region, Manzuke, the region Seven, Yandu region, Yandu Lamla Shuduken, Yayore, Yamlingi, Yandu Lamla Mashuna, and then Yandu Lamla Shuyagi, D. Rigneva, Rignedigan, De Yongores, Rigensa. The Ranger Lamla Shuba, Ranger Lam Shumena, Ranger Lamgi, Delia Droha, Rikchiki. That Janju Simbe Lamla Shuba, Janju Simbe Lam Mosuki Mena, Delia Shuya Rictis Mediba. Chisa, Dini region Sum Yonkore, region Sunga don't what Pando Sunga Pando Chego was or Duja region Sunga Jesu Zingwebe, said Duja region Sunga Pando Jet, Digi to Cordunga Seco was or Chesa go by Dedagi Lam Lapco said. Chesan Consul Sungu Lam Yamlet Casore, Consul Pando Jebala. Dujanyandu region la Pando Jabala, Caragore, Dujanyandu region la Lamten Kore, Consul and Yamling Rimba the Palap, Yamlin Jeju, Dinico Corridungal Jogore, Dinache, Raja region, Detula Yamlet Casore, Pando Jabala, Consulia, and the Lam Yamling Rimba to get there, konso nyamso lenju andiya ane kowel tuwa chikure janju sembe rikchen tigelya an taba chimbe chue nyamlengi tiki pa di tene konso nyamlen lenju nyamso lenju sanjo koma toba chikure cheza duje rikchen sumba jingwebe jingweba inza dada lamla lafkukure sidu cheza deni lamten bala soso mashingna ane kansila kure 제상 컨트롤 받던 발 소소 신고고래 소소 신발라 당보 퇴바지 퇴배 되는지 할 소소 냠는지 냠소래 소소규라 냠뇽 깨고래 똑바디 깨고래 깨네 컨트롤 라고로 와서 그러다 제상 마생 발라 라요 말해 제상 컨트롤 판도 제발라 컨트롤 람디 땡고고래 람디 땡발라 소소 신고고래 소소 신발라 소소 냠는 제고고래 했어요 donda지서 냠는 제고비 김전 다 리버스함다나 두스러 와서 그러다
So the section reasons are being presented why the various divisions of the Buddha's teachings are not mutually exclusive. We see here in the first sentence, in this regard, the Bodhisattva's wish is to work for the welfare of the world. So what does it mean to work for the welfare of the world? It means to help each and every being throughout all the worlds, each and every being without exception, to help them achieve a state of happiness, freed from suffering. So help all beings abide in happiness without even a moment of suffering or pain. And how to do so? To do this, it is necessary to prize or care for all the three types of disciples and therefore train in their respective paths. So the Bodhisattva has as their heart wish to benefit each and every being. So those who are receptive to the Dharma, they can be divided in different ways. So one way to divide is the three types of disciples. So those would be those who lean towards the trainings of a hero, those whose karmic predisposition leans them towards the trainings of a solitary realizer, or those who lean towards the trainings of a bodhisattva. So these are the one way of dividing those who are inclined towards the Buddha Dharma into three types of beings. For a bodhisattva to actually be a bodhisattva, they will hold each of these types of beings dear, hold them deep within their heart. The bodhisattva would be incapable of discriminating between them, having some more dear to them than the other, and thereby being more inclined to helping some than another. This kind of thinking is absent for a bodhisattva. Therefore, again we're using reasoning here, for a bodhisattva to be able to help beings of varying karmic dispositions, the bodhisattva will need a vast knowledge and experience based on that knowledge, so that she can guide each type of being perfectly in accordance with their own karmic background, their own predisposition. So those then who are more inclined towards striving for their own individual liberation, the bodhisattva would be able to appear to them in a way that they could relate to and guide them to cultivate the paths of individual liberation within their continuum. Those who are more inclined to take on the welfare of all beings, to take on the responsibility to alleviate the suffering of all beings without exception, the bodhisattva needs to have the knowledge of the entire paths of the bodhisattva and experience based on that knowledge, and thereby can skillfully guide those who are inclined to the paths of the bodhisattva. So in this way, we come to see that the bodhisattva, because at the very core of their being is a love for all beings, compassion for all, therefore they will require a vast education and to have trained their mind on all the points of that education so as to be able to skillfully guide each and every being in relation to their own karmic background.
파 라비아디 소소이 신고르마도 소소 마신나라 에스카요 말바다 소소 신고고르바 지난도 쇼소이길 베네 기로 지나데 베네 리모디아로 지나데 안징한도게 첸디 또 거기나데 가리네 셴지 라바라 소소이 신고고르바 소소이 신바라 롭종 제고고르바 Lobsang Chewa. The Lobsang Chewa, the Shen Pa Tue, Shanzale, Shandas, Jilab Gurba. Chesadi, Shen Jilab ne Pando Chevala, and so Shingure, so Shingala, so Solia Jandur Chegore, Chesan Dudusine, Jidin Bigotana, Chikliaka Dahana, Dahara Red Rovada. The Indians are Dina Shinda Chigwa Chagorba.
In our world, it is exactly like this. If one lacks knowledge in a particular area, one cannot train others, guide others in that area. It's just not possible. If one were to be, for example, a teacher of science or of art or of language, one has to be skilled in that particular field in order to be able to train others. So in order to be able to guide others and build a relationship with them and help them develop skills, one needs knowledge, and ideally one also needs to be able to be skilled in putting that knowledge into practice. So not merely know something theoretically, but be skilled in the application of it. So too in the case of the Buddha Dharma.
Lam Yamlinji Rimba Dembala, Yamli Riba Sosu Haku, Chisan Sosugi Hakuala, and the Yantugi, Shunima Sis, Sonchebi, Shundilia, Dampo Tore, Tebe, Dampo Te, Lama Chiziki, and Tene, Vendadela, Samata, the Nesamtan Sosu Gom, the Neg Sosugi, Yamyor, Geodu, Tenishalia, Malupton Cheche, the Yandu Ba Corons Lam De, the Gomju, the Gombala, the Nankozo, Tarbico Toyata, and the Dene, Miajic, Sanjago, Toya Chia, Dush and the Chia. Dinashin, Rangela Mina, Sosugan, Rangelam, Shunishi, Shundi, Pasu, Tebe, Duendelia, Samta, the Samtan Gom, the Yamlingi, Sosugi, Yamyon Tone, and Consolia Rangelam Yamli Batige, and Jigge Pa Den, Didi Dene, and Gozoyata, Range Judgmentivolia, Tarpalogoya, and Denea, and Sanjako Hologoya, and Jajusen Bajina, Tapachim Regina, Colia, Tapachim Lam Yamli Badi, Demba Dambonga in Tuasam Jia, Samata, the Neg Sosugi Yamyon, Consul Pa Sheshe, Yamli, Ducine, Panto to Gores, China Jajusen Big Shendun. Jajusen Big Legato, the Yamli Jed, Semjing don't do be a cheduri, Semjing don't do bala, don't do tang Lam Lamijimba called the Dingo Gore, Ditembala, Mazu Shingo Gore, Chebala. Constitution Shebeke Dilia, Tuasam Jehures, General Lobsang Jehures, the Ing of the Tapachim Shigere, Yandueta Raji, Shung Lobsang Jeho Mare said, no juries. Jezadi, Janju Lamrim di Gipa, to Sloyd, Di Chasan Jehova Tower, to go or SH, on to Sungor Dadana.
Understanding this then, the Bodhisattva will understand that they need to help all beings, guide all beings, whether their inclination is to the paths of a hero, solitary realizer, or as potential fellow bodhisattvas. And how can a bodhisattva help this variety of beings? Bodhisattva needs to come to know the various stages of training that each type of being needs to engage in. And how do they come to know that? First, they receive teachings extensively, and whilst receiving teachings from their lamas, they engage in the process of reflecting and later meditating on these teachings they're receiving. These teachings, which are outline or detail the varying stages of training required for those inclined to the trainings of a hero or solitary realizer or bodhisattva. The bodhisattva then will engage in cultivation of such education and skill with a motivation to guide all beings in the most important of ways to attain liberation from suffering or enlightenment itself. So when I was saying earlier that this is how it is in our world too, that one needs to be skilled in an area to be able to guide others. In the area of greatest importance, the attainment of a happiness that is never punctuated by even a moment of pain, the bodhisattva needs to be extensively skilled in a vast array of areas so as to be able to help beings. So those that the bodhisattva later encounters who are inclined towards individual liberation, the Bodhisattva needs to know the varying stages of training and have engaged in them so as to guide the being towards the attainment of their individual liberation along the paths of a hero solitary realizer. And the Bodhisattva, for their own development, but certainly so as to benefit others, needs to know in detail all the stages of training of a Bodhisattva too, so that those who are inclined to generate the minds of the Mahayana within them, the Bodhisattva can guide them to cultivate the wish to be of greatest benefit to all beings as well. So therefore, in order to be able to benefit as many beings as possible, no matter what their inclination, the Bodhisattva will not exclude some of the Dharma, will not see some trainings or some divisions as exclusive from others, but understand that in order to benefit as broad an array of beings, the Bodhisattva needs to be skilled in all the teachings of the Buddha, leaving none aside.
판도 주고로 제자다 장주 선바 지리야 판도 주고도 아니 바로도 침비게 가서 뒤에 냠는 지게네 두자리야 아니 판도 주고도 뒤에 냠는 지게 두자디게야 뒤에 감니 침비 람 냠는 림베데 땡고로 와 디땡 발라 소소 신고로 와 디신 발라 소소 롭죠 제메나 신마로 대지 신마나 땡마도나 아니 가서래 현된 주고 말와 디나시 당나가 냠는지는 거의 기주 로마리아 년대 연구에 전시 선바용의 라제릭체 차상 연구에 대술파 취시해발라 람냠는 바데 대단 년퇴기 될 때마다 년퇴기 람미린 바디게 땡신고고래 라제게 판도를 발라 라제 람미린 바 땡신고래 아 바로 뒤침베게 뒤 냠는 지간들이야 뒤 뒤감데스 람냠는 바 땡신고고래 되니게 땡신면 땡마신 바나 되니가 냠는 지긴데 아니 지게 대신에 명이 경솔로 지금에 세네 니 판도의 현주 주에도 심지어 탐질의 현주 주바의 차고 말지다 전주 선배기 차는 차고 말지서 차도고 말아 진짜 되니게 된 판도 제발라 소소기 냠는게 조상한테 다 가르가르 제고를 년퇴를 알람 가르가르 자주미고 토바 고메아리 따위에 토네 가르 공부 주위에 토네 가르가르 냠는 제고를 라겔라 가르디가라 가르 케버 미도와 가르 냠는 제고 차산 땡신 가지고 그래 대 전주 선배는 게 디치도 디 땡신 봐 디나제다 상하 들지 대 냠는 지겐지 어디서를 땡신 봐 차산 땡신 고고로 땡신 발로 소소기 퇴섬 당보 퇴 디네 퇴배 되느라 삼 디네 곰제 소소기 냠뇨 마샤나 이신 말아 제자 디네 인자 상하 들지 대 남냠는 지나 년퇴기 중다 아니 라제 중다 아니 지게 되 가서 승비게 바로 집에 퇴배 남냠는 이름바 도서 바로 롭전 제고 신고해야 돼 지게 리비 삼다베네 디투고래 제가 제고 두고 냠는 제고 차고 제가 디 냠는 제고 말에 세야데 삼노 지게시 되니게 삼노 여바 있나 삼노 고호 있나디 다다 차고 말에 전주신비 냠는 이름바 조사데 다다로 전주신비 냠는 지게 된다 조어디 가르치는 냠는 지기요 바디 하 모한섭 제고데.
Similarly, a practitioner who's inclined towards mantra or tantra, their purpose of engaging in the trainings of mantra is so that they can become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So if that motivation is to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings is in any way genuine, that practitioner will want to have as varied a knowledge and skill base as possible so as to benefit as many people as possible. So the practitioner may well be a committed practitioner of the Mantrayana, but they will at the same time be gaining knowledge and experience of the entire sutra path. Because the purpose of training in mantra is so that they can become a Buddha for the sake of others. And those others will primarily be their students, so those they can have the most profound of impact on, the impact of guiding them to a state freed of suffering. And amongst them, their students, there will be those who are inclined towards the tantric path, just like them, and those who are inclined to the sutra paths. And amongst those who are inclined to the sutra paths, there will be those who are inclined towards the trainings of individual liberation, and those inclined towards the trainings of the perfection vehicle. So a practitioner of Tantra who is only interested and only focused on the cultivation of the trainings of mantra will not be able to benefit all, the wide variety of students they will encounter. And thereby, they will not be able to fulfill their bodhisattva aspiration. So therefore, a bodhisattva seeks as broad a knowledge base as possible so as to be able to benefit as wide a variety of beings as possible. And not only a broad knowledge base, but experience based on that knowledge. So therefore, all those who are striving for Tantra, for enlightenment, and certainly too those who are practicing the paths of secret mantra, they will strive to come to know all the divisions of mantra and sutra, and to do so in the same way as other practitioners, hearing from their teacher, under the guidance of their teacher, reflecting and meditating, so that they can be of benefit to the greatest array of beings as possible, those who are drawn not only to Tantra, but also to Sutra. This then is an illustration of using reasoning to establish that in order to benefit others, all the trainings associated with both Sutra and Tantra need to be known and experience gained thereof. Then continuing in the paragraph, for as Venerable Maitreya explained, the Bodhisattva's goals are accomplished through knowing the paths of the three vehicles.
Janju Sembadiki Tabasumki Lamshin Gugore, Shi Gugore, Tabasum Yanduki, Tabata Rangi, Taba, Janjusi, Tebia Lamdi, Shingugores, Tabasum Lamshebani, Shingobi Gimza Karelana, Jesu Jamakumbe, Janju Sembiki, Shedun Dubjiki, Tabimbe, Jeza, Janju Semba Nambi, Shanley, Pamper to be Tabres, so say Shingo de Shanley, Pamper to be a tablet, Urias or that Tabres, Tabimbe, Yimber, and Jesu Jamakumbe, Sonso said. Jidun Durup Zaba Gang said. Jizuyamogun begin Yandu, she was one of Gunshe Nigi, Yajichiza, Gayenda, Drola Pembajina, Lamshe Nigi, Jidin Durup Zabagang, Jidin be Dundubi Chidu, Semjing Shala Pembit Chidu, said Jiza, Jidin you Dundubi Chidu, and Jiza, Jashu Sembigi, Dundubi Chidu, Yanduga Lam Shingore, Jashu Sembe Lam Shingore, and Raji Lam de Shingore, says. I wonder again the Sungor, that it Monday can the person don't look Zabak, Jisha didn't be a tapping, but soon you rest the sick did that, and then she was pushing each other. Drola Pembers and Lamshi Nigi, Jidin Durup Zabak, said the sick did it.
Deputy Loping, a drink.
I think that lost Andy.
And
Dorje Lama so.
Okay. So this final sentence then again from the paragraph. For as Venerable Maitreya explained, the Bodhisattva's goals are accomplished through knowing the paths of the three vehicles. Maitreya explained this in his text, Ornaments of Clear Realization, and Genlo recited the part of the text, but I don't know that, of course. But what Maitreya was explaining in the Ornaments of Clear Realization is that Bodhisattvas, in order to fulfill their heart aspiration of benefiting all types of beings, need to have a wide variety of skills to help beings across the world. Those who are inclined to the paths of a hero, those who are inclined towards the paths of a solitary realizer, and those who are inclined, like the Bodhisattva, to the paths of the Mahayana. So this is referring to the paths of the three vehicles. So therefore, the Bodhisattva will seek to be supremely skilled across the varying trainings that the Buddha presented.
이산다 지진 점바 권백이 되니게 지딩게 돈주베 체도안에 두제고레세도 송요레세 룽디디레다 송거와 태바 숨게 년되게 람셰고레 랑제 람셰고레 전주심베 람셰고레스 그래서는 전주심베게 시드윈 샹리아 두제리제스네 판도주베 타브레스 제가 탑디메나 아니 샹라 판도주투고 말레스 제자 지진 점바 권백이 송요레세지 도시 룽디 지진 점바 권백 룽디 장거레.
This quotation from Maitreya then first sets out what the objective of a bodhisattva is, and that is to help all beings attain a state freed of suffering. So, and then the quotation presents, so how to do so? And the answer would be to be skilled or be knowing the paths of the three vehicles, here as solitary realizer and bodhisattva. That is the method in order to fulfill their goal.
안디니게 슝 샤야레 년두에 람탐체 셰바샤진 람탐체 제바르 자오세데 디니게 람탐체스 년두에 람나랑게 람탐체 진스 람나제 랑게 셰고고레스 랑게 곰치네 가서 또보길래 제고고레스야다 디니게 안치게 슝 망고요레다네.
In addition to this quotation, there will be many other texts which states the bodhisattva needs to know and gain realization of the three varying lineages or three varying vehicles. The text continues, and here to answer the question, so does that mean that the bodhisattva needs to practice each and every single path that is presented?
나디네 가르스네 태진예 람라 투모와 이민니레사 태진예 람라 투모와시다 투모 많이 봐 이요레제 나 당보니 태면예 데네르 중화나 민라소레 데네르 중화나 민라 대양 랑직비 시와 되녀라 소베게 삼바 투모 많이 바당 제바 투모 많이 바라 많이 바소 마도바오 소레.
In the next paragraph, the Mahayana path has both common and uncommon aspects. The former includes those that originate from the Hinayana scriptural baskets, except for some peculiarities that are not shared in common, such as the aspiration for individual liberation.
타바쳔비게 간사게 투모위에 람냠len 지역고야지다 먹어야지 니용그레스 람데라 니용그레스 투모와 람 임바다 투모와 임바다 민바 니세다 임바다 마임바 니용그레스 당보데 가르세나 투모 마임바데 투모 마임바시 그렇다 투모와 냠len 지 먹어야 돼 가래라나 태면이 되네를 중화나 가서 그래. 냠는 제거바데 태면이 되네를 중화나입니다. 태면이 되는 마송샤바 되게 해서 내가 이제 태바 진비기 투모에 냠는 제거 투모데 투모 많이 봐야 돼. 투모 많이 봐야 돼. 전주선 뭐 그런 게 전주심이 군에 라제 이거는 진비 되네 냠는 제디 투모 많이 봐와 년도라에 지금 다 투모와데 가래서는 냠는 제디 투모와서 가래서는 태면이 되네를 중화나입니다. 태면 연두기 되뇌다 랑제 되뇌는 마송샤바기 냠르기 림바티기 해서 투모하셔야 돼. 냠는 제고야 돼. 저 투모하다 투모 많이 봐 전주심비 냠는지가 람데라 람 냠는지 림바 냠는데로 투모하셔야 돼. 투모 많이 봐서 이 용거를 해지와. 근데 투모 많이 봐라나 장주심기 게 잠니지게 장주심기 심비트네 냠는지에 투모 많이 봐 자고래지. 대 장주심비 마도 장주심을 젬비게 가서 냠는지에 장주심 냠는지고 말와. 그래서 대 타파 태친백 냠는 지고리 투모 많이 바래 태친백 장슈쌤 잠니제 장슈쌤 기도하는 냠는 제야디 태친바마도 태친발에 셈백 가서 지교 말에디 투모 태친백 투모 많이 바들이 제 다 태친바다 테마면 이게 투모에 남는 제야데 가래 투모 니가 그 남제 냠는 제야데 가래라도 태명이 되네를 중앙나래서 태명이 되네를 중앙나래서 태명이 되네나로 송샤바디게 해서다 태명 년도에다 란제기 되는 날마 송셰비 냠는 진바디 다 태친바 장슈쌤바나면 냠는 제고래 태명바 년도에다 란제 코론스 제고래 이거 투모와 제고래서
The Mahayana path has both common and uncommon aspects. So first of all, the uncommon aspect is it's uncommon in that amongst the three types of practitioners, only bodhisattvas will practice. So that's what's meant by uncommon. And the common aspect is that which is common to the three types of practitioners. So those two types of the Tibetan style, the hero and solitary realizer, as well as the Mahayanas, the bodhisattva. So all three types of practitioners engage in the common practices, whereas the uncommon refers only to that of the Mahayana. So the former, the common parts, the common aspects, includes those that originate from the Hinayana scriptural baskets, except for some peculiarities that are not shared in common, such as the aspiration for individual liberation.
태명이 되는 나라 가르송요래. 세나 태명이 되는 나라 가르송은 샘전 가서 코르웨 동아래 저위 제도 탈바더니 삼바장고래 세하다. 니네 네가 가르송은 주름송고래. 니네 진바다 쇠바다 전주 삼대 셰랍냠네 제고래 세야디 냠네 진바 찾아 송고래. 디스 냠네 제고래 세야지. 제산 태명이 유tion하래. 원도 송고로와 제산 디소 다 투모래서 제산 녜중 코베 동아래 탈두게 삼바 녜중 깨야다. 녜중 곰야 진바 수준 쇠바 전주 삼된 띵이 삼된 되네 다음에 봐도 배 셰랍해야 되게 잔주선 반남자디 냠는 지역 공고거래 년도에다 라게 되게 네 공고거래 제가 니가기 탈바토발라 안에 예중다 저 추림의 진보 전주 쇠바 전주 삼대 셰랍라서 마곰바 탈바토토야요 말이야 인지 민지 탈바토발라 년도에다 라게 니가 네 공고거래 세대 전주선 반남자 산지고바 토발라 인지 민지 공부를 코르웨 동아래 탈되게 삼바 샘제 랑지 보면 샘제 탐조 코르웨 동아래 탈되게 삼바 공부도와 진에 주름숭어 쇠바 공부 전주 정보라 삼대의 띵에서 거로와 다음에 봐도 동의도 셔라 공부고라 안디 될은 내가 가르서는 장주선 공부고라 제 투모만이 봐 장주선 거 제가 디소 제가 년도 유tion의 테마 유tion의 가르송요래서 고발을 위해 탈바고 탈비 내중고미야 진바 수준 쇠바 준의 섬띵이 시작할 거미야 송요래 대소 장주선배의 공부를 년도의 공부를 제가 장주선비의 공부에 투모에 남세 디레서다 대소
The practitioners of the Tibetan lineage, those which are heroes and solitary realizers, they will engage in reflecting on the sufferings of samsara in its entirety, coming to recognize that there is no peace or happiness to be found as long as one is bound within the suffering realms of samsara. And they'll recognize what the causes are, their contaminated karma and afflictions, and give rise to a definite or a determination to arise from the suffering realms of samsara and attain liberation. In this way, they generate definite emergence. Having generated definite emergence, they then engage in the various trainings which are indispensable, which are crucial for the attainment of liberation, namely practices such as generosity, ethical restraint, patience, joyous perseverance, concentration, and the wisdom realizing emptiness. Those practices are not unique to the practitioner, to heroes and solitary realizers. They are common in that they are shared with bodhisattvas as well. A bodhisattva will have trained in reflecting on the sufferings of samsara, giving rise to the mind of definite emergence, the determination to be free of what binds them in samsara, and they will, in order to achieve their goal of enlightenment, will, having already generated definite emergence will then engage in the practices of generosity, ethical restraint, patience, joy, perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. So therefore we see that the two types of practitioner, in the Theravada, hero and solitary realizer, as well as the Mahayanas, the Bodhisattva, they, in order to achieve the respective goals of liberation and enlightenment, will both engage in these common trainings of generating definite emergence through reflecting on the sufferings of samsara and its causes, and then engaging in the 6 practices of generosity, etc., up to wisdom. So therefore, these are common to the 3 types of practitioner. That being said, not all practices are common between the varying beings, so I'll just read the sentence again. The former includes those that originate from the Hinayana scriptural baskets, except for some peculiarities that are not shared in common, such as the aspiration for individual liberation.
땅에 심지어 탐지기 donda 제투 말에 세상 나랑 지부 코비에 동안을 탈바세 토부두 산비게 타바던 얘기 삼바 라니 지부 시와 된도 예비게 삼노 쇼르와 어디 자주 sem바납니다. 디 검교 말에 제리다 디냠네 디고야 검교 말에 세상 디 검바에 자주심 타바치메 람님네 제도 디 내내게 삼다야디 시와 라니 지부 코로 라니 지부 다sem자 탐지기 제투사 말랑아란 지부 탈바지 토구두 셈베 삼로디 다 태면비기 투모 많이 받이 냠네 코로나서 투모 많이 받아 코로나서마도 다치 자주심베 냠네 지금 말 코로나서 투모 많이 배 냠네들이스 제사 코로나서 투모 많이 배 냠네들이 디 아는 아주 자주심베게 디 냠네 제고 말해지.
So what then is uncommon? Except for some peculiarities that are not shared in common being uncommon, such as the aspiration for individual liberation. So the two Theravada type of practitioners, the hero and solitary realizer, they have as their motivation their own individual liberation from the suffering realms of samsara. So that is their uncommon motivation. It's not shared with bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas do not have that motivation. So this is part of the training of heroes and solitary realizers, their motivation, their motivation, which is unique to them. It's not shared with bodhisattvas.
라니 지구 삼자 탐제 등의 제투사 말에 대사다 삼자 탐제 제나 라에 탈바토마데 고발에 깨와 냥아요 제사 삼자 탐제게 된데 제도 삼자 라 코로나 나라랑 안산지 가서 자주메지고 토구 탈바 토구도 진내 삼로다 군로체 디군내라제 디장의 추름 송긴 선배 삼로디 추름 소야디 라니 지구 시와 되냐기 르군내 랑베 토네 추름다 진바도 svebe냠네 어디서 자주심be 지겨 말에 했다.
Whilst the varying practitioners have these 6 trainings of ethical restraint, generosity, and so forth in common, what they don't share in common is the motivation with which they engage in those trainings. So the hero and solitary realizer, the Patyeka Buddha and the Shavaka, they will have as their motivation, I will guard my ethics perfectly so as to accumulate the causes to achieve the result of my own individual liberation. So the training in ethics, that is shared, but the motivation for training in ethics, for example, is not shared.
지사다 전주선비게 남기 라니 지부 돈이 마슌네 년도에 슌네 시베 라니 지부 돈이 코 라니 지부 체도 카타바 돈이 삼블로디 공바이나 전유심비 디 공부해나 되네 라니 지부 타바 등에 토부도 선배 삼로 고용도 샘전 탐제의 판도 제 투사 말에 선배들 내용으로 와 제가 전유심 동로에게 년가요 제가 디 인자 코 가다래 독초래 제가 디 공교 말해서 제가 전유심 반남기 방자 조디 가르치고 왔으나 제가 라니 지부 시워 된는 왜 삼로들 꽤 치셔되고 왔다디 디 꽤 친구 시우래서 디 방자 조지고 그래
If bodhisattvas were to adopt a motivation of the hero and solitary realizer, where they engage in their training, such as ethics, for their own benefit, their own individual liberation, if a bodhisattva were to do that, they would most likely lose their bodhicitta. So therefore, in the trainings between the hero and solitary realizers and the bodhisattva, what is mutually exclusive or contradictory is this motivation. And the bodhisattva guards her motivation from coming under the influence of the wish for her own individual liberation as being the primary object of abandonment, because it is the greatest fault for a bodhisattva, losing their bodhicitta.
데니게 삼로라니 지구시와 된된열제 남 대삼다디 제바 투모 많이 바래디 년도 콘소 투모 많이 바래스마도 태면비게 그런 년도다 라니리체 코로지기 마다 냠네제 디 투모 많이 바래디 아니 냠네 지교와 말해스 디 마도바 아니 샨다스 마도바 오시디 디 마도바 지바 선마도 아제 디 마도바 년도 슈네 셰비기 수림 냠네 진에 가서 수림년데다 진베 냠네 쇠베 냠네 준리 냠네 삼된 딩에제 신의 주다 다음에 봐도 베시럽 어찌 사장님은 제고래서.
So in brief, what is uncommon, what is unique, is the particular motivations. What is common or shared are the trainings of ethical restraint, generosity, patience, joyous perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. These are common or shared, but the motivation is uncommon.
다 논단닝보라 전유심비 냠는 제바디야 진바 추제 그 진바 추제 제바 추제 삼대 셰랍디 파신주기 냠는 디레 다디네 년도 남게 냠는 제야들 년도 란제디게 냠는 제발라 타바토비치도 냠는 제발라 진바 추제 제바 추제 삼대 셰랍주기 셰랑 디레 제자 냠는 제 지바래다 이나다 가르쳐봐 쇼어스는 전유삼바는 그 투모 많이 바게 냠는 제 투모 많이 바디 샘제 탐지교 된다라야 상교고바 군노 잠니제게 디도 군노 자주 샘제 지산 자주 샘기 심비 군의 랑제 파신주디 냠는 제야도 상교고바도 규차르고 그래 나데네 머니 태만 바디게 년도다 랑제 디기 군노들 샘제 탐지교 된다 상교고 토투사 말에 라니 지구 코르베 둥아들로 전화 지구도 샘비 데네기 돈이게 군노 디 태만 투모 많이 바제 디 군의 랑제 진보 수르서버 준비 냠는 셰라디 냠는 제도 타바토비 규차르고 지산 상예토비 규차토고 말 타바토비 규차고 지산 냠는 제발라 진보 수르서버 준비 삼대 셰랍 주디 냠는디 제 찍바 임발라 군로라야 아니 직sem제한테 상요고바 토시 군의 랑요도 군로디 심비 신요도 돼서 아니 상예고바도 규차르고 그래 디네게야 지 군로 랑아 지고 되니 시고 되니 선비 군내라지 군론 디 심비 토네 디수 냠는 제야도 아니 거 탈바섬 토비 규차르고 또 냠는 제게 림바데 주라래 임바직라 아니 군론기 토네 캬버 거 뉴버시 좀 쇼르도 가자지 온두 차기도 와 데네 인자 랑이 시고 되니 지부 되니 람 냠는 림바디 태면지 쇼나는 송요래 디 전시세만은 냠는 제야 말해 사실
So, in essence, the 6 practices of generosity, ethical restraint, patience, joyous perseverance, concentration, and wisdom, these are common or shared between the varying practitioners, the hero and solitary realizer on one hand and the bodhisattva on the other. The practices are common or shared. What is uncommon or unique is their respective motivations. On one side, the hero and solitary realizer are engaging in the common practices of ethics and so forth in order to achieve their own individual liberation. On the other hand, the bodhisattva is engaging in the same practice of ethics, but with their uncommon motivation of striving for enlightenment. So what is common are these trainings, but the difference, what is uncommon, is the motivation. And therefore, what gives the training its power is the underlying motivation, which the training is conjoined with. So a mind of ethics, for example, the determination to restrain one's mind from being unethical, coming under the influence of the afflictions, whether that is conjoined with the desire for one's own individual liberation, that motivation gives a certain direction and strength to the virtuous practice. But the other alternative motivation, that of enlightenment for the sake of others, when this motivation of bodhicitta is conjoined with the same training of ethics, then the power that comes from such a motivation leads that to become a cause for enlightenment.
냠내 제가 가르치는 진보도 수준 수보 준비 something 셰랍 다라래 고 냠내 제다니 니지 핵이 냠내 진보디다 지기 수준 소야래 진비 냠내 저 세베 냠내 준비 냠내 something 셰랍 냠내 something 조 something something 띵해지나 셰랍 되게 고 냠내 제들와 제자디 냠내 제디 디 파신테비 값소 냠내 제군로 장주심 군내라는 냠내 제디래 당가의 대비가 소냠내 군내 군로 장주심기 심비토네 냠내 제디래 냠내 제디 군로디에 장주심 군내라 되네 냠내 제디야 파신주디래 다 나랑 되니래 캬바를 가려 연구를 세네 디 냠내 제에게 림바 띵이지 디도 유대 유진들이야 사바요다 사바 배 참모 사바 참모 대뇌근의 시비기 유진디에 또 사바제 당아의 중대 시비게도 유진디게 대도의 유검게 유진디게 신도네 사보시오치 개발체고 디마도 제 냠내제의 진보수를 수보준데 삼대 시라 동반이 도비고면마도 유 동반이래 개고면 동반이래 개발매래 진보도 수를 수보준게 냠내 띵해진 신의 대설래 개발매래 제자다 신의 주변디게 유라 아니 신의기 미비 유래 나 사바디다 디 곰비 띵에 진들에 셈 차와 사바디 용고래시 개발되는 심마도 용을
Practitioner determined to become a Buddha for the sake of others will be a Mahayanist. And within the Mahayana, there are two streams of practice, that of Sutra and that of Tantra. Whichever stream of practice one happens to be engaging in, as long as it's in the context of the Mahayana, one will be engaging in the practices of generosity, ethical restraint, patience, joy, perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. So those six conjoined with bodhicitta. Whether one is engaging in practices of Sutra or Tantra, the same six perfections are to be found. The primary difference, though, what will distinguish a practice of, for example, generosity or practice of any of the six perfections, what will primarily differentiate a sutra training from one of Tantra is the quality, the profundity or the subtlety, of the consciousness engaged in that practice. So the quality of the consciousness that is a union of calm abiding and meditative insight that is engaged in the practice of generosity, ethical restraint, etc. That is the primary difference. Actual practitioner of Tantra will be engaging in the six perfections with a far subtler consciousness or more profound consciousness engaged in the practice of generosity and so forth. So that's the primary difference between Sutra and Tantric practice within the Mahayana.
진비 냠내자 수제 냠내자 수배 냠내자 준대냐 삼대냐 셰라 냠내자 디두라래 다 디두 냠내자데 디두 냠내제발아야 공롱을야 당 아니 곰비기 람 띵이지 셰바들라 차라게 켜봐라 근데다 년뒤에 남지 디두 냠내지고르데 공롱라 랑제바 진배 랑지징의 삼력이 공롱디기 진배 토네 냠내제바인자 냠내지고래 전주선바 남지 디두 냠내지고르데 이나 디 공롱을야 semje thamje gi de saje go ba to bi shu de nyam le chi go re 당아가 냠는 지가 디 냠는 지고 공로 심제 탐지도 전주심 군에 랑제 디가라야 냠는 지기 셰바 냠는 기 림비기 셰바 띵해진다데 로디파 삽게 참모 시우지도는 냠는 지투고래 지상 나게 난신 셰바 참모딜레 집에는 뒤가 셰바티 라바라바 차르고래 라바 차고래 지상 디니 맞아 냠는 지기 림바디 진바 수련 서바 수련 something 셰랍
So the essence of the difference here is not in terms of the practices. There are these 6 practices of generosity, ethical restraint, patience, choice, perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. What differentiates practitioners is not those six practices, but rather their underlying motivation. So if the practitioner is of the Theravada inclination, a hero or solitary realizer, they will be engaging in those same 6 practices with a motivation of achieving their own individual liberation. A practitioner of the Mahayana, a bodhisattva, will be engaging in those same 6 practices, but with the goal of becoming a Buddha for the sake of alleviating the suffering of all beings. And that practitioner, that bodhisattva, if they are a practitioner of sutra or tantra, what primarily distinguishes them is the quality or the profundity, the subtlety of the consciousness that is engaged in the practice of meditating on emptiness, generosity, or patience, and so forth. So what differentiates is primarily the motivation, and then within the Mahayana, between Sutra and Tantra, the quality of the consciousness of the Bodhisattva, the subtlety of the consciousness of the Bodhisattva, is what would differentiate the practice of Sutra or Tantra.
탈바 톱나 디수 냠내 지우도 산조 고모 토라 디토 나가 냠내 지나 디수 지고고래 개와지마 하다 미고 보통 디수 지고도 와 디마세 아 저게 체델 삼다비네 체델에 소소게 안지게 동아 뇽아다 안기와 여게 체다랑 삼다비네 류의 니제 돈비고 수준송나 아들이야 뇨다 뇽아로 와다 지사 류가 니제 마돈비 수준 마송아지 제반네 류유고네 제방을 마탑 xianla ganga rangla ganga nga yone kishi ta mara xie xianla pho nyu gyo che an di ge ji na xianla ganga rangla ganga ji zang samlo na lia an ji ge ta mara ho xianla nyu be samba da che we samba ho se de so so ma ji ba cha ya ji za lu nga yi sum yo go ne nie jue de be zu rum so ma na che de le ya sam da we ne so so ye ganga chung a ji wa sam da ya da an se me le le ya da an di na shi jin bi gi nyam ne che ba na 미치 소속에 강하용 토네 류가 있으면 샬레 팬비게 도신 로바체도 바이나 미차장이 소설이야 가오치야다 안샬레야 판도 랑알레네 미šan다 가오치도 소소이네 안에 선 초와 기워야 안에 쇠비기 공바이나 이제 쇠보 공바도 배 코로나 당을 코딩을 두자서 니 두자 가디네 강아 채소서 셈마죠 강아체 지선 쇠보 공투바이나 데니게 쇠보 공네 세소서 셈 흘시시 이제 바시 차야다 데니게 전주게 삼다베네 데니게 계획자와 샹레 팬배자와 어데 무티니지 배하고도 삼반 야 무티지 제투야게 지자 무티 시대야 진짜도 삼네 체델라 삼다베네 이투림소야 쇠바콤야 전주쯤에 진변님네 지야되게 다 띵해진 검토인데 배야고로 와 진짜 내내 삼다베네 소속에 배지 검저 띵해진 제시도 검 삼다베네 샹게 남미야 찾아 도와줘되니 딜레양 안저 시대 용고로 와 진짜 체디게 대점제 삼다베네 진바 수료쇠바 전주 아니 삼대되게 냠는 제반은 소소로 판도 유디베 직제 아니 제가 치말 하다 미고바 토에 삼다베네 진바 수료쇠바 전주 삼된 셰라디게 가소디 냠는 제고야 디소이래 다제와 체마 아니 제 탈베고바 토와서면네 나 진바 수료쇠바 전주 삼된 셰라디게 냠는 제야래 산조고바 토베 치드네 디소 냠는 제야래 제자다 냠는 제가가 냠는 제나 자주스베 냠는 제 년되다 라제 냠는 제 개와치말 하다 미고바 토베 냠는 제 제자 삼로디 두스치는 아주 냠는 제야데 냠는 제야데 주라지데 디 꿀롱을 토려야 다 꿀롱라 that Geshe Thubten and the Rangigo to Gunelaya, Jawachima, and Tarbat Sada Mizam go to Gunolaya, and Tedi Rangi Digizam, some Gunolaya, Unolana so Geshe Yungurete, Yamlin Jadi, Diraim Bachite, and Deliada, Jiga. 탑시다야 데네 토네야 즉 마뉴라 지도 중국어와 지사던다다 닝볼라다 안주기 진보수를 써봐주는 세야데 마생한 저게 체딜 삼다나리 개와치마 삼다와나 탈비고 받아 사지고 받으시나 냠네 제야데 디소라리도 하다
If one has generated the wish to become a Buddha for the sake of others, and is engaging in the quickest of methods, that of Tantra, to achieve this goal for the sake of others, one will be practicing the 6 perfections. And if one is doing so, though, not along the Tantric paths, but with the Tantric trainings, but rather with the Sutra trainings, then one is engaging in those same 6 perfections, but with a coarser union of calm abiding and meditative stabilization. So it's primarily the subtleness or the profundity of the consciousness that differentiates these 2 types of Mahayana practitioners. But if one has not given rise to the determination to become a Buddha for the sake of others, but is rather striving for one's own individual liberation, one will be engaging in those same 6 practices, from generosity to wisdom, in order to achieve one's own individual liberation. And one will be training in this style of either a hero or a solitary realizer. And if one hasn't given rise to a genuine determination to emerge from the suffering realms of samsara and attain liberation, but has given rise to determination to ensure that one does not fall into the lower realms in one's next life, amongst these 6, it's indispensable to train in ethics, as well as generosity, patience, and joyous perseverance. And if one is also able to train in concentration and wisdom, this will aid the quality of the rebirth one will attain in one's next life. So here, even if one is striving just for a good rebirth, at least 4 of those 6 practices must be accomplished, if not all 6. And if one hasn't even yet given rise to a determination to close the door to falling into the lower realms in the next life, and it's just wanting to have less problems and more happiness in this life, one still needs to engage in living ethically. In other words, keeping one's mind unafflicted and not acting in a harsh way towards others or speaking harshly to or about others. Because one knows if one acts in an unethical way, one experiences more problems, has more conflict. And similarly, if one has a generous spirit, one wants to give of oneself to others, one will easily develop close and intimate relations with others. They will relate to one as a friend, seeing you as someone they can rely on. So therefore, even for happiness in this life, generosity helps create those causes. So too with patience. If one doesn't cultivate a patient attitude, one will struggle to have much peace of mind in this life, becoming easily enraged when things don't go the way one wants. And if one also is able to have joyous perseverance, in other words, delighting in virtue, those other trainings of ethics, generosity, and patience, one will be naturally inclined towards. And if one is also able to calm one's mind a bit, to cultivating a mind approaching calm abiding, that too will help with happiness in this life. So what hopefully is clear is that wherever one finds oneself, one is a being longing for happiness, freed of suffering. And the way to achieve that is to engage in these 6 trainings, to cultivate these in one's mind to the extent that they pervade one. What differentiates practitioners is the quality of the motivation that those trainings are conjoined with, but not the training themselves. Those remain those same 6.
Alright, Venerable Lobsang Dorje 저기 소수의 냠len 제에 가르쳐 왔습니다. 네, 자주 람렌들 봐 로정지 제바 이나 네 상지 유승비게 송탐제 가와메 봐 안에 가사지기 냠len 제거외게 안지기 뭐에다 야나요 돈에 냠len 제거 봐디 안지 하고 두걸 빼면서 야고래샤 되는 인자 내내기 냠len 제에 자주 람레 다디 저마 제름 체계 람림 징이 송샤바 델마 달비직 최섬제제 징이 냠는 지기야 선배게 다디니게 징냠는 제 투야다 디니게 냠는 제발라 아 저기 대안에 지금 대시 쇼회네 송바나신 슈바나신 제네 라미게 안절야 도신 두세외 왕게 도신에 나와데 빼마세 그린 첨부 다 쇼치 다디네자 라마야 대바 조고체다 라메 기시게딘 지수제야 안소사랑게 되는 냠네 지인 세비 듬바게야 안데네게 제네 당아 저게 샘제 탐지게 되는 잠 샘젤야 안지 개와데 되나 샘비 잠바고미야다 인지고미야 안에 샘제 탐지 상주 고방 토벌쇼 샘베 삼다 디네게 자주 샘러게야 다진의 샘제한 상조법은 토비 7도 내다 류가 26권에 현재 뉴비게 체외 자와서 자위지며 샘베 삼다야래 디네가 소수의 류가 26권에 다진 자리 진비 냠나 강 도도체 해야다 디네 쇠박 도시네 삼다이딩 아주게 다 도시네 삼는 날이야 도시네 자야딩 아주 냠nen 세대 뒤로와다 야네 야도 삼다 도시네 자야딩 냠nen 세 뒤에마다 신 믹시게 딜레하 삼나 삼다의 로소 진냠네세 현다 진지 라샤 제 강에 말하다 제가 지금 소수기 삼노도 두시네 마송샤바티게 된다데 삼다 디니 삼나도 두시가 삼로 장도를 해야 차도 여러분 당한 저기 대디소 대 나도 나랑하다 나도 세상에 죄비 지발을 세상 지발에 제서 제고 지발마다 다 나다다 교회에 자리 가요 말다가 차상 장고에 지발을 지발와 제자다 니셰바데 결혼을 시고래 나랑 레시고다 당한 차상을 시고다디 제자 디 제데 제고고를 왔다가 디네게 제투야리 먼저 삼당고에디 예심벌에서 당한 디링이 아주 롭스카사나 디링을 롭선디게 당한 저기 삼나 냠len 제고야 되는 삼다지레서 주의.
What we've looked at then this afternoon is that the foundational text for the Lamrim tradition, in particular the Lamrim text from Lama Tsongkhapa, is Lamp on the Path to Enlightenment by Lama Atisha, in which the Buddhist teachings are all to be found in a complete manner. And through understanding this text well, one will come to see that the varying divisions or the varying ways that one can divide the Buddha's teachings are not at all mutually exclusive. And through this, one comes to understand exactly what it is that one needs to train one's mind in. And then, in addition, what I can add here, what we've looked at this morning and last night, which is through what we've heard here, reflects on the great kindness of the lamas of the lineage, who all have followed the example of their teachers, trained their mind in the way that is presented here, and applied themselves with vigor and continuity to develop these good qualities within themselves, and then share the fruits of those good qualities with their students. And with that as a basis, we reflect on how truly fortunate we are to have met the teachings again in this life, and thereby to not let this opportunity of what remains of this life go to waste, but to utilize what remains of this life well. And how to do so? To reflect on the sufferings of samsara and their cause, giving rise to determination to gain freedom from the pain and misery that bedevils samsara, and thereafter to reflect that each and every being I have met or will meet is bound in these suffering realms, and therefore they too will be longing for freedom just like I do. And use this then as a basis to develop love and compassion for each and every being, generating bodhicitta in this way, the determination to become a Buddha for the sake of others, engage in those 6 reflections, generosity, ethics, and so forth. And if time is short, here focus on the determination, I will not harm others. I will guard my mind and ensure that I keep my mind from coming under the control or dominance of the afflictions. And thereby I will not speak to others in a harsh manner or about others in a harsh manner, and I will not act in a way that is harmful towards others. But moreover, wherever I can, I will help others. I will give of myself to ease their suffering. And conjoining and following the reflections on ethics and generosity is that of patience. No matter what adverse situations I encounter, whether they arise within or I meet them without, I will keep my mind subdued and not allow it to be overwhelmed by the afflictions, and rather with an attitude of love and compassion, respond with care, with kindness, and with wisdom. So these reflections are what we need to engage in. Sporadically, will have some impact, but really to do so repeatedly over a sustained period, this is what will lead to transformation. That is how all my teachers and all the teachers of the lineage have transformed their mind. And these meditations here are really our only job as Buddhists, because these are the meditations. There's nothing in addition to these 6 conjoined with bodhicitta. This is what we need to do. It's nothing more than that. This is our primary function. Cultivating these minds within us repeatedly over a sustained period is the meaning of Buddhist practice. Training our minds in this way is the meaning of Buddhist practice. So this is what we all need to do. So by me saying this to you, I am also talking to myself. Because when I say that this is what we all need to do, this is the primary job of Buddhists, I include myself in that. Cultivate bodhicitta and then conjoin it with the training of the 6 perfections. This is what myself and all of us need to do. This is our primary responsibility. Okay, then thank you very much. And we'll conclude there for the weekend. Thank you.